Hello, my friend. You should only be watching this video if you run a recruitment or staffing business and you're currently looking at a way to automate your candidate sourcing side of things, specifically using Clay.com. Now, for those of you that may not be aware about all of the use cases for Clay for recruiters, I'll make sure to link a video right now for you to watch as well. In the meantime, let's jump right into it and I'll just show you exactly what we're going to do today. So to start with, I just want to remind you where Clay actually fits in when it comes to the candidate sourcing side of things. And specifically, you need to first of all understand what the inputs are. And typically, the inputs in order to run such workflow inside of Clay will be everything about the candidates. So you would need to upload the candidates inside of Clay. So it's up to you where you get these candidates from. They can be from your ATS, from your CRM, from LinkedIn Recruit Search, like from any of these places, we can probably scrape them or push them across. So for that, you need to determine the inputs. After that, we'll largely use Clay to figure out what your recruitment team does manually right now, and we will mimic the actions of what your recruitment team does. We will just mimic it step by step inside of Clay through what's called enrichments. So tiny little steps inside of Clay. And then finally, the output of all of this will be either putting the candidates into email sequences, LinkedIn sequences, or perhaps we will have to notify your team to be able to call them and to pre-screen them and to set them a task on their CRM or ATS, or maybe even send like a Slack notification just saying like a heads up, this candidate qualifies for this specific role, give them a call, here is their number, right? Something like this could work really well as well. So let's first of all understand what the inputs are. So the inputs will largely be the full name of the candidate, the LinkedIn URL, and some other data. I've created a quick sample data file over here. So it's got like the industries, the LinkedIn company URL, the location of the person, which is quite important as well. And all of this can be scraped from LinkedIn. So don't worry about it, should work super fine. And then secondly, you would need the job specification. So the job description, the location of the job. I mean, salary or compensation could be useful, but most of the time it's not necessary. And for this, let's talk about what Clay will do for you. So typically, this is how Clay will do it for you. So first of all, we will qualify the candidate based on the location. So in this case, we will automatically check if the candidate is in the right geographic area. This is important if it's a physical face-to-face job. But largely, if it's like an AI or machine learning role, a lot of them are remote right now. So once again, this could not be applicable to some of the candidates. And in that case, we can just remove this from being a step. Now, the second step will be if the candidate is close. So location-wise, if they're close to the role, we'll screen the candidate against the job description. So once again, that will be pretty straightforward as well. All it takes is one fancy prompt using this cool enrichment called Clayagent. And then afterwards, the third step is if the candidate's experiences matches the job description and they're in the right location and they tick our boxes, we will send them an outreach email or a LinkedIn message, literally mimicking the exact same message that you would typically send to the candidates. And this can be done automatically at scale. Now, at this moment in time, you probably want to call me out and say like, hey, how do I know this works? How do I know that, you actually know your stuff? And simply put, I have a course which teaches recruiters all of this stuff. We taught over 300 people. That's the first side of things. So I know I can educate people on how to use Clay. And secondly, we've implemented over 20 different recruitment systems in the last probably 18 months for staffing agencies. So I'm pretty confident in how to use Clay. And essentially, this is going to be the exact template that I'm going to teach you how to build completely from scratch throughout this video. So feel free to forward it to someone on your team who's a bit more techie, a bit more nerdy, someone who has a tiny bit more time. Or if that's you, then congrats, you made it to the right place, right? So all we have to do here is just input some candidates. And all the input fields are marked in green, right? So we'll have like the first name, the last name, the job title, the company name, the LinkedIn profile, the email address, all of this fun stuff. These will be the inputs that we would need to get from another place. So if we just go back here, we should remember that these are the inputs, right? So we need to figure out what the inputs are. So the first question is, where do you get all of this candidate info from? Typically, you would get it from Sales Navigator. And once again, I can show you very briefly how to do that right now. So all you'll do is you'll go on Sales Navigator. You will filter for a specific job title. So let's say over here, let's say if I'm looking for like a GTM engineer, for example, all I need to do after that is to use one of my various scrapers, which hopefully you can see on my screen right now. I will probably go for Prospeo because it's my favorite one right now. So if I click on Prospeo, gosh, it will ask me to sign into my account, which is criminal, but let's wait for that. Yeah, I should be inside the account now. And basically, if I click on the Prospeo Chrome extension, after I get like a free account with them, I can just click on that. And it basically says export your complete search results from Sales Navigator to a spreadsheet and get the emails. So I can just click on that. And you'll basically start the scrape of Sales Navigator. I know this is a manual step. There are ways to make it more automated and stuff, but all it is just one click of a button. You will then just name your list. So let's say like GTM engineer. You will click on export the leads. And then as soon as the list is created, it will be saved over here, ready for you to download in a CSV format, and you can then input it inside of a Clay table. And by the way, I'll link a link to Prospeo right underneath the video as well, just for your convenience. But basically, it's not complete rocket science just yet. Anyone can scrape Sales Navigator, anyone can scrape LinkedIn Recruiter. You don't need to be overly technical to do that. So after we have this data inside of this table, well, you may ask, how the hell do we get this data inside the table? And bear in mind, we're going to build this completely from scratch in this video later on. But to get the data into the table, you'll click on import from CSV, and you will just import all of this data, right? Now, when you have the data in the table, the only thing that you need to do is click on edit column, and you will change the location of where the candidate should be. And the same thing here for the job description, you'll just click on edit column and you'll change the job description here. So the beauty of this template is that it basically works for any role, because you can just edit the location, the job description, and even later on, the steps that we take, we will always scrape the LinkedIn profile and we'll always find the work email. We can then skip the second step of assigning a location tag, because sometimes we want to basically say that someone is really close to the location. Sometimes we want to see if, if they're a better fit for a remote role or something of that sort. And then the third step, as I promised you already, I'll teach you and I'll show you how to create this step of evaluating the education and the work experience, because a lot of the time, let's be real, it's 2025. You don't want to be reading their LinkedIn profile manually and just basically coming up to the same conclusion as this has come up to here, where it literally cost us like a tenth of a cent, right? Like, that's not a good use of your time, I don't think. And before we know it, you will determine if it's a great fit or a bad fit. And for all the good fits, we'll then put them into the sequences as already promised. And as I already said quite a few times. So right now, I just think, how about we actually just get started with this? And as we mentioned, these are the things that we want to basically do, right? So to start with, let's just start building this table completely from scratch. The way I will go about it is, all right, so I'm going to assume that you've never tried Clay before. So I'm going to build this workflow out completely from scratch for absolute beginners. So first of all, we'll click on New. And needless to say, before you get to this stage, make sure to click on my link in the description down below if you don't have a Clay account just yet. And you will get 3,000 free credits when you get a paid Clay plan. So as soon as you're inside of Clay and you've signed up for an account, even if it's a free account for now, all you need to do is click on New, click on Workbook, and you will name this workbook your candidate sourcing, and I'll just call it Tim Test, because otherwise I don't want this to be mixed up with all the other fancy workflows that we've created. The first thing we'll do is we'll click on Add over here, and we'll click on Blank Table, because what we're basically trying to do is just create a new table. We'll call this table Table 1, Candidate Screening plus Outreach. Nothing too fancy just yet. Now, if we go back to the actual steps that we need to take, remember that there are three main steps. There are the inputs, then there are the outputs, and then there is the Clay part as well, right? So to start with, what I very much encourage you to do is to start labeling the inputs. So for this, you'll click on Add Column, you'll click on Text, and you'll just basically go and label all the inputs. So I'll say input 1, first name of the candidate, and you'll just basically do this for quite a few times with all the inputs. So for this, just think of any input that you would need. Typically, it'll be the first name, the last name of the candidate, and all you're going to do is just basically label all of these inputs. So I'm just going to walk you through it. So I'm just going to say input 2, last name of the candidate, right? And if you want to duplicate the text column headers, you can just click on it and then click on duplicate, and it will duplicate it. Then you just need to quickly rename it. So I'll just call this input 3, and then this will be like the full name of the candidate, and you get the idea. So what I'm going to do now is pause the video until I basically label 5 or 6 different inputs, and then I'll show you what these inputs are, because I don't want you to monotonously, basically just be super bored throughout this process. Now, a couple of seconds later, I've basically just labeled all the inputs. So I've got the first name of the candidate, the last name of the candidate, the full name of the candidate, the job title of the candidate, their current company where they work, their current company LinkedIn URL. And by the way, when you see that it's supposed to be a URL like a website, but it says T over here, it's in the wrong format. So we need to change the text format to a URL. Otherwise, Clay will give you a bunch of bugs later down the line. So you're welcome. Hopefully that makes a bit more sense as well. And then, yeah, just make sure that all of this is formatted correctly. So the website should be as a URL. And I'm sure you can read some of these headers for yourself. So you have like the current company LinkedIn URL, you have the location of the candidates, you have the website of the candidate's company, and you have the candidate LinkedIn profile URL. So these are all the inputs. For newbies and total beginners to Clay, I really very much recommend for you guys to just basically label all the, basically just right click on the column and then just change the color to green, because if you change the color to green of all the inputs, you can then just remember that all these inputs need to be in place in order for this table to run completely fine without any errors. So let's just do that. Once again, this is super OCD, I know, but the chances are, if you don't do this, if you don't have the attention to detail of just labeling the columns and doing all of this boring stuff, you will probably just stumble across quite a few errors later down the line inside of Clay. So I wouldn't recommend for you to just skip through these more boring steps of the process. Bearing in mind that they will still save you a lot of time as you go along with all of this. So by now, what we've already done is we've just created the inputs. Now, the next thing that we need to do is now create what Clay does for us. And for that, we need to basically create an input column for the location and an input column for that job description as well. So I'm going to click on add column. I'm going to click text. And now I'm going to say input 10, job description, right? And then finally, we'll also have, let's say in this case over here, another input, and this will be input 11, location of where the candidate should be. Basically, all of these inputs will be enough in order for you to basically feed all of this into the Clay table. And the next thing that we need to now start worrying about is what Clay will basically do here. So right now, if I were you, pause this video and just ask yourself, what does your candidate sourcing team tend to do manually? I will just assume that this is the 3-step process that we're going to take. So we'll qualify the candidate based on location. If the person is close, we'll screen the candidate against the job description, and then we'll send out an outreach email or LinkedIn message. So just give that some thought, and let's jump right into the first step of qualifying where the candidate is based on a location. Now, in order for us to actually be able to pull all of this off, what I will start with is just by importing some of the sample data. And once again, I will try and basically give you the opportunity to add the sample data underneath the video. So hopefully I'll remember to link this underneath the video. But if not, you may just need to type in manually a couple of the candidates. So I'm going to click on import from CSV, and now I'm just going to basically just import the sample data, which hopefully will be attached right underneath the video. I'm going to select to add it to the current table, and I'm also going to select the exact fields that I want to be adding. So the company name, LinkedIn company, URL, and the LinkedIn profile URL, and then let's say the person's location. We can see a lot of the time we wouldn't have every individual thing about the candidate, but that's absolutely fine. We don't need every individual thing in order to pull this off. We just need like most of the fields in order to understand that. So let's do the current company LinkedIn URL, the company name, job title, and we're just basically matching the fields that we're importing from this sample data to the titles of the columns here. So that's why we label them as inputs, because that will make it so much easier to then see, oh, do we have all 9 inputs, or do we just have 6, or do we have 5? You can, like, it's a lot easier to do that. So first name, last name. I mean, that's pretty much it. We don't have any other information to play around with. So that's that. I'm going to click on add to table and save and don't run. The reason that we're doing this right now is because we just want to see what the data looks like. And the first row we can always delete because it's just like empty. So we can see all of this data looks fine. So we have most of the info that we need, right? So we have the locations. We just don't have the website where the candidate works right now. Now, in order to get a bit more info about the actual candidate, what I would recommend to start with is, now, as you may remember, I showed you how we used this tool called Prospeo to scrape LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, we'll do something similar using that exact same tool, and we'll scrape the LinkedIn profiles of the candidates. The way we'll do that is by clicking on Add Enrichment in the top right corner. We'll be typing in Prospeo. And then over here, they have this specific step, which will cost you 2 credits per row, where you find the work email and enrich the person from the LinkedIn profile. Now, as always, I would just recommend that you get a Prospeo paid account. So once again, that will cost you 0 credits. It will just cost you some real money if you go and buy it from Prospio directly. And all we need for that is the LinkedIn profile of the person. So let's test it out. Let's click continue to add fields and save and don't run for the time being. So what we'll do is we'll play a couple of these rows. And over here, we can now rename this and we'll call step 1, scrape LinkedIn profile of the candidate. Right, okay, there we are. Now, the reason that we scrape the LinkedIn profile of the candidate is because like this, we don't need to go and look at the profile every single time because that will cost a lot of AI credits to do that. And we already have their skills, we have their summaries, we have like the companies they used to work at, and we can even calculate the number of years of their work experience because we have everything ranging about their work experience here. So we can see like the companies, the dates they worked there, and so on. So based on that, we can calculate how many years of work experience they have. Now, this is just step 1, remember? So, and right now, it's just about qualifying the candidate based on the location. The way we'll go about this is we'll click on Add Enrichment. We'll type in Clayagent, and let's have a look. Clayagent, AI web researcher. Once again, you're an absolute idiot if you are still spending Clay credits on this. I would recommend just using GPT 4.0 mini and then just adding your own API key here. Once again, I've got a million videos on how to do that on the channel. If you just type in ChatGPT on the channel, you'll be able to see a video on how to save Clay credits there. I've already created a prompt, so I'm just going to copy and paste it here. You can pause the video right now, or you can go and buy the course directly so that you can get access to this Clay template. The course, by the way, if you haven't heard about it just yet, it's unlockclay.com/recruiters. Ridiculously low price, just £200, the best course on the market for recruiters, simply because it's the only course for recruiters that teaches you how to unlock Clay, so how to use Clay both for candidate sourcing and the client finding side of things. And once again, go try it out, 30-day money-back guarantee included. But yeah, the promo ends there. So next up, this is basically the exact prompt we'll be using over here in order to screen the candidate against the location where they're located, where they're based, right? So we'll say the info is the location of the candidate. Based on the location's proximity to the work location, assign one of the following tags. If the candidate is within a 20-kilometer radius of the work location, say lives close. If they're not, if the candidate is within basically 20 to 100 kilometers of the work location, say that they live within 100 kilometers but may need relocation. And then once again, if it's further than 100 kilometers away, ideal for a remote job opportunity. Once again, this is completely up to you how you basically screen the candidates based on location, if that's even something that you want to do. I'm not going to force you to do it, but all we basically need to do is now to feed the candidate's location. And remember that the candidate's location will be scraped by Prospio just now. So over here, we should have a location somewhere. So if we go all the way down, we should see location, country, country code, state, time zone. So we can even see the city, right? So I'm just going to input all of these 7 items for where the candidate is located because it will then get every single data point that we know about the person. So for example, for this first candidate, it will be Greater Sydney area. For the second candidate and for the third candidate, it will be a bit different because the third candidate is in New South Wales, right? And then we'll say, hey, if you don't know this, if this is too vague, then visit their LinkedIn profile. So we'll just say visit their LinkedIn profile, and then this is the LinkedIn profile of the person, right? And see where, and then we'll just say first name is based, right? And for those of you that are completely new to Clay, and if you made it this far in the video, congrats, you definitely need to subscribe to this lovely YouTube channel, right? But the backslash to refer to a specific column inside of Clay. So hopefully, hopefully you already know this by now. And then the work location, this for here, we just need to put a placeholder. And remember that this will be the location of where the candidate should be. And every time we'll just update this in one column, and that will basically automatically apply to this enrichment here. So right away, we can then just click on save and don't run. And we can name this step 2. Once again, I'm super OCD about this because now we're at a stage where we're trying to teach our team internally to basically do this better than I can do it myself. So for this reason, like we basically just really push my colleagues to basically name these columns like religiously well, and hence I encourage you to do that as well. So step 2 will be to add a location tag, right? And now we'll play the 3 rows. Now, if it ever gives you some inputs missing, that should never prevent you from pulling off this entire workflow. So what I'm going to do is, because the only thing that has to be there is the work location, because otherwise, this will definitely not work. So I'm just going to enable just the work location, and everything else I'll switch off for the time being, because I don't think it's that important. So let's just put this location of where the candidate should be. I'll just say Sydney, and then I'll say Sydney here as well. And once again, I'm just putting it one by one now. In reality, you could just change it at scale later down the line. So you could literally just type in the location here and it will apply to all the columns. But we're not going to do it just yet because we're just trying to do this. And you can see in this case, they say lives close because it's like all of these locations are within 10 kilometers. And for that, we'll just click on the column, and then this response, we'll click add as a column, and we'll say location tag, because this is important later down the line, right? So right now, let's just have a look at the workflow. So far, we qualify the candidate based on location, and next up, we're going to screen the candidate against the job description. So that's what we're up against next. And in order for this to happen, once again, we need to go and grab a random job description that's applicable to these people and just copy and paste it into these individual rows here. Or alternatively, if you want to do it for every row inside of your clay table, you can just do it here. So I'm just going to do it quickly. I'm just going to copy and paste the random job description. All right, so I've just added the job description here, and it's just for one random job. I think it's for like different surveyor jobs over here, and this is something that I've just used before. And then I'm just going to change the location so to be within 100 kilometers of Sydney, just so that we capture as much people as possible. And then one thing that we need to do afterwards, as I already mentioned a million times by now, is next up, we need to screen the candidates against this exact job description. The way we'll do that is, once again, we will use Clayagent. So I'm just going to click on Add Enrichment. I'm going to type in Clayagent. Bonus points if you spell that correctly. I'll select Clayagent. And in my case, I already have a template. So I'm just going to click on Browse Templates. And over here, we'll have Evaluate Education and Work Experience. For that, I would just need to input the job description text and the LinkedIn profile and the previous response, which I believe is the... Once again, you can ignore this because I'll show you exactly what you can type in. So this is what you would have to type in on your side. The input is the LinkedIn profile and the job description. Visit the profile and look for two things: the education and the compatibility with the job description. If the person's education and all certifications are aligned with the job descriptions, say great fit. If not, say bad fit. If the person does not have their aforementioned education, say bad fit. Output, great fit or bad fit, nothing else. Here is the profile to visit, and then we're going to feed it the LinkedIn profile of the candidate, and here is the job description to interpret with the job description here. Now, on that basis, basically what we're doing here is we're just saying, hey, do exactly what the person would do manually otherwise. Going to look at their education, going to look at their work experience, and if they fit the job description by the looks of it, just basically qualify them for this. So on top of that, I only want to do it if... So at the very bottom, we'll use this thing called a conditional formula. So we'll click on Use AI, and we'll say only run if, and then this location tag is lives close, for example. Now, the reason we will do this is because we don't want to screen candidates who are, I don't know, like 1 million kilometers away, right? So then we'll click on Save and Don't Run. And bearing in mind that in order for this to actually work, you need to copy and paste a random job description here. So all I'm going to do here is click on this button, and I'll rename this step in the meantime. And I'll say step 2, see if the candidate is a great or bad fit, right? I'm also going to do it with a couple of other candidates as well, so that you can see this for yourself. Over here. And I might even just run a couple more rows. And by the way, if you want to do this for every individual candidate here, you can just click on Edit Column and copy and paste the job description, click on Save. Oh gosh, and now I'm going to run all of the rows, which is going to be very, very tedious because I hate spending clay credits. But I don't actually think I'm spending any clay credits here because all of these are done through my own API keys. Another thing that I teach you inside of unlockclay.com, so go buy that course literally right now. So yeah, here we are. We're going to scrape all the LinkedIn profiles. We'll do the location tags, and then after that, we'll see if they're a good fit for the role. So let's just give it a couple of seconds. This will just load. You can see that as soon as step 2 fills in, it will then trigger the running of step 3, which I need to rename to step 3 here. Otherwise, it's somewhat confusing. And in the meantime, let's just check out what my promises were. So I promised you that I'll teach you how to qualify the candidate based on the location. Tick. If the candidate is closed, we'll screen the candidate against the job description. Tick. And then if the candidate's experiences match the job description, we'll then send them to outreach, email, or LinkedIn message. Basically, that's the only thing that I'm due to do right now. So I'll click on this. I'll click on response, and I'll say fit or not, question mark, which, I just mean it in a way like, are they a good fit for the role, right? And then over here, I'm now going to click on add column, add enrichment, hey reach, and then I'll add the lead to a campaign. Oops. Let's use my account, and I can select a campaign here. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to use hey reach step by step, but if you want to know how to use hey reach step by step, check out a video which will be linked right now. And if you want to figure out how to use Clay together with HeyReach, check out this video right now as well. So hopefully I don't forget to add the videos there, because that'll be proper awkward. Right, okay, so that's that. And then finally, on top of that, if you want to push it into Smart Lead or something like that, we can also add the lead to a campaign inside of whatever fancy email automation tool. In this case, I'll use Smart Lead, and I'm just going to basically just title this step, I don't know, whatever, like 5, add to HeyReach. And then step 6, add to Smart Lead. Step 6, add to Smart Lead. And in the meantime, you're probably thinking like, hey, so how do you act, like, where is step 4? Why does it go from step 3 to step 5? Pretty awkward, right? So glad you asked, first of all, great question. And then secondly, what I would say is, in order to be able to send the lead to a campaign, we need to generate a message. So what I'm going to do is click on add column, message, and then I'll basically just say hi, and then we'll just input the first name of the candidate. And I'll say, I have a great gig for you. Here is the summary. And then we can just input a bunch of like whatever fancy summary here, right? And then interested, and basically whatever you typically send to a candidate, you can send here. You can even hyper personalize this message. But to be totally honest with you, I can't teach, like, me going through this inside of this video would not be that helpful. But if you go and watch a bunch of the videos on this channel, they teach you how you can use Clay to basically personalize all of these fancy emails that you're sending out. I'll just call this email 1 even as the subject line, because I don't care about all of this stuff. And simply put, the way that you will transfer all of these emails into Smart Lead and HeyReach is through just basically over here at the very bottom, just going on custom fields, and then you'll just call this email 1, and then you can select email 1 that we've just created. And then this will automatically basically send all of this stuff straight into HeyReach. Same thing for Smart Lead, will be done the same way as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. The end goal of this video was to teach you how to build a candidate sourcing workflow, which is super, super straightforward, starting from basically inputting some candidate details, and before you know it, then qualifying them based on locations, based on their compatibility with the job description, and then sending them for outreach to LinkedIn and to emails. Now, if you enjoyed this video, just promise me one of two things. You'd either subscribe to the channel or consider joining our Unlock Clay community, whether that's just checking out the most basic course, which is literally £100, or the recruiter specific course, which is £200, I believe, at the time of me recording this. Other than that, if you have any questions, just drop them down below. If you have any video recommendations going forward for me to film something else that doesn't yet make sense to you inside of Clay, do let me know as well. And I wish you the best of luck with your Clay learning journey, and I'll make sure to remember to link as much material down below as possible so that you can finally basically use this sample data. You can have a look at the slides, and you can maybe even have access to this Clay table. But to be totally honest, I'll probably gatekeep it behind a paywall inside of the Unlock Clay for Recruiters course. Otherwise, otherwise I don't want to be giving away like literally hours of my tutorials completely for free on YouTube just yet. So that's that. I'll see you in the next video. And of course, one final thing. If you can't be bothered to set up all of these monotonous and super sophisticated Clay workflows, just book a free custom automation with us. All it takes is for you to just go on b2bboosted.com and apply for a free custom automation. It will walk you through all the costs when you apply for the custom automation. It will explain everything to you. Worst comes to worst, we can literally build you a table like this completely for free on us in return for just an honest review of how you found the experience of us building this for you. So once again, if you want to take me up on that, go to b2bboosted.com, but TNCs apply. You can't be a direct competitor. And of course, you need to be a staffing or recruitment agency to claim this specific offer. Anyways, all the best in the meantime. Have a good one. Cheers.